Good morning, this is Shelby Law with Great Basin Prescribed Fire and Smoke Briefing for Monday, March 18th, 2024. Precipitation for the past 7 days is shown here on the left, and the percent of average for the past 30 days on the right. Over the past week, we've seen quite a bit of precip, especially the past 3 or 4 days across southern Utah as that low pressure system remained in place across the far southern tip of the Great Basin, bringing some pretty impressive precip and snow totals to the southern Utah mountains there. Over the past 30 days, we do have some areas of above average, including southern Idaho, where we saw storms last week, and then the precip from the last few days down south. Okay, looking at the snow totals here, the snow totals on the left for the past 3 days, showing that impressive precip event across the south, with the low pressure centered over the triple point here in southern Nevada and northern Arizona. That led to pretty good precipitation amounts, snow totals, in fact, here in these darker shades of red, between 2 to 3 feet of snow there in those darker shades of red into brown. Dry across the north for the weekend, however. And our snowpack totals are looking pretty good across the area, especially portions of northern Nevada and then southern Utah with these recent storms, but still looking pretty good over Idaho. The further north you go, the values get a little bit lower, but all in all, pretty good for the middle of March. This morning's satellite imagery shows clear skies across the entire western U.S. We have this really nice, strong blocking ridge in place, and then this little cutoff low that's kind of still sitting here over the southwest. It's been there all weekend, but the precip has really moved on. So generally sunny skies across most of the area and warm temperatures today. This ridge will break down by midweek. Okay, so again, by this afternoon, still really strong ridge in place across the west with this low hanging out over the southwest. Ventilation rates are not great across the north, but still looking pretty good across Utah and parts of southern Nevada. Transport winds are elevated across the southern Great Basin here, southern Nevada and southern Utah, associated with that low that's still sitting there. And mixing heights are also higher in those areas, so Utah and Nevada with lower values across the north. High temperatures today are pretty warm, maybe even slightly above normal for the time of year, with highs just about up to 70 degrees in portions of the western Great Basin. Utah temperatures are a little bit lower with that low sitting there across the south especially. Probability of precip is very low everywhere. The precip is mainly going to stay to our south. So a nice warm dry day today. On Tuesday, the ridge still remains in place and that low is still hanging out over the southwest, so kind of a repeat of Monday. Ventilation rates begin to decrease across much of the area as that ridge continues to take hold for a few more days. Transport winds lighten up tomorrow, and mixing heights are also decreasing somewhat, but still a little bit elevated over Nevada and southern Utah. On Wednesday, that low finally kicks off to the east. And we see some continued ridging for the most part over the basin, but we will begin to see the pattern changing with a low pressure system moving into the Pacific Northwest. Ventilation rates are kind of a mixed bag across the area on Wednesday as we transition between weather patterns here. So transport winds on Wednesday start to pick up across the Pacific Northwest and into portions of northwest Nevada. Maybe some gustier winds in eastern Utah as well, and mixing heights beginning to increase across Nevada and Utah, and to some extent in Idaho. Forecasted clearing index for today is pretty high across much of Utah, but on Tuesday and Wednesday we see those values decreasing a bit across the north. 3-day precip totals are shown here. Really just a little bit of precip lingering today with that low across the far south, mainly over Arizona. And then as we get into, this takes us through Thursday morning, as we get into Wednesday into Thursday, we'll see a little bit of precip returning to the north. On Thursday, we'll start to see things changing a little bit more. Zonal flow or westerly flow across the Great Basin ahead of this next low that starts to really deepen and strengthen there off the coast. Ventilation rates increase ahead of that low, and the low continues to make its way a little bit closer to the coast on Wednesday or on Friday. We still have that ridge kind of hanging on just a little bit, so temperatures still remaining warm. A little bit of precip beginning to move into Idaho and portions of northwest Nevada, but still dry across the south. Ventilation rates are good. And on Saturday, that's the day we expect the front to come through with some increasing showers across much of the area, increasing precip there ahead of that low. Ventilation rates should be pretty good on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the main trough will swing across the Great Basin, bringing cooler temperatures, high elevation snow, low elevation rain on Sunday. Ventilation rates still remaining good. So the precip accumulations for days 4 and 5, this really just takes us Thursday through early in the day Saturday. So we start to see the precipitation moving into the Pacific Northwest, California, and a little bit into Idaho, but it won't really move through the Great Basin until more later in the day on Saturday and into Sunday. So we should see that precip moving in for the weekend. The extended forecast for March 25th through the 31st calls for below normal temperatures across much of the U.S., with the bullseye there over the northern plains, and above normal precip to the Great Basin. So the spring continues to deliver some good precip for us. And that concludes today's smoke dispersion briefing. Please check back on Wednesday for the latest updates.